Okay, so a very brief overview on the hoist that Mandy's going to be using today for your session. This particular one is on a gantry, two-post gantry, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and is manufactured by our parent company, Silvalea, in Canada. This model is called a Monarch. It's actually a two-function product, this one, so lift and lower powered, left and right manual, as Mandy's showing you there now. We offer this in 3 different safe working loads, 130 kilograms, 200 and 272. So we find that pretty much covers everything we need to before we hit the bariatric market. Okay, so whilst Mandy's got hold of that, she can show you the spreader bar. This particular one is an adult spreader bar. We offer it as a pediatric. And in adult and pediatric, we offer a 4-point spreader bar, so giving some distance from the shoulder loops to the leg loops. The clips on the end of ours are what we call a sure clip. This is a patented clip, slightly different to what you would find on most conventional spreader bars, whereby we lift the grey clip as opposed to pushing down a plunger. There we go. Mandy's showing you that on the portable. So you lift it up, apply the loop from the sling, and it will spring load back into position. We find this a more safe and secure fixing method. So you're taking the time to apply the loop, and when you're removing it, it just slips straight off. While you've got hold of that, Mandy, we'll quickly run through the portable. This particular one is the Monarch Portable, two-function, obviously. 200 kilograms maximum safe working load, but we also offer it as a 130 as well. The handset is two-function handset, has a loop on the back for attachment. This particular model is quite lightweight. It's only 5 kilograms, so pretty much lighter than a lot of our competitors on the market. Okay, thanks for that, Mandy. You'll find the portables are pretty popular in gantry arrangements or in a property where there are a number of tracks and it's just maybe not the outlay for hoists on each track isn't required, so portable units can be moved from track to track. Okay, we can cover most configurations, wall fixings, XY systems, turntables, the usual. And I'd say any questions you have, maybe you can pop in the chat, or if they're a bit more complex, we can answer those in an email later on. Okay, so that's just a brief overview. Your session's about slings, so I'll hand you over to Mandy. And thank you very much.
Thank you, James, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. Just to explain how it's going to work, we are looking at standard sling shapes. So to help you, hopefully you will have had the poster of the standard shapes. If Alice could kindly just bring up the poster so we can see what we're looking at. Throughout the industry, there are many different names of slings, but they're all based on these 6 shapes. So really the purpose of the session is to look at the shapes, to understand what they do, the advantages and the limitations of each style, so that then hopefully that information can help you when you're choosing the right style for your particular situation. But they all look slightly different and they will have a different purpose. So really, once we understand these standard shapes, we can then use that information for more complex situations. But today we'll just look at the standard slings, and we'll talk about standard situations as much as we can. But this little poster will also give you an idea of where to measure. And if we just scroll down a little bit more, the brief understanding of each shape and things that you can add on to make them a little bit more special. So that's the plan. We will look at them in detail. We are only product specialists. We're not moving and handling advisors, so we're only going to be giving you product knowledge and sharing some of our information with you. But to start with, I'm just going to hold up the first shape and talk about the slings in general. So the standard slings are made in a polyester. So robust polyester, either the solid fabric or the mesh for bathing. All standard slings will have a safe working load of 220, which is 35 stone, and they should wash up to 85 and tumble dry at a low heat. But it is always worth checking that on the label, because some products will have more specialized fabrics and the washing temperature will change. But the labeling, so Silvalea now are moving over to woven labels. Hopefully you can see that as clearly as possible. Nice and clear with lots of information, safe working load, any safety instructions, washing instructions, codes, all the information that is required. The sizing label also is woven, and there is a unique serial number for traceability. So all the labels are woven, which should help prevent fading, because it's really important that you have a sling with a legible label. That label is not clear, it should be withdrawn from use because it will contravene the LOLA regulations. So always encourage carers to check that they can read the label and the safety instructions. But the sling is made, you know, very carefully, with very carefully chosen components, the binding, the webbing, threads, how many stitches per inch are done. So everything's calibrated so that we can be confident that this sling will take in excess of that safe working load. So strangely, even the smaller sizes will have a 220 weight limit, and that's because everything's been calibrated to the strength. So we know we are confident that we can lift that person safely. Standard slings will have handles on for positioning. Some people like that, some prefer to use the edges of the sling, but they will be on the standard slings. More specialized slings won't. So we're trying to avoid any potential pressure. So that is the standard shape. They're looking at this shape. This is a fast fit. Fast fit, you might know it as a quick fit, easy fit, general purpose, universal. Lots of different names for this shape. But if we look at the shape, very straightforward, probably the first full body sling that's used, very universally known, and very straightforward to apply. So I'm going to put it on Laura. Laura's my compliant model, and we're using an open chair so that we can see visually for the session. So we know it's, you know, not a normal recreation, but certainly will help to explain the style. Divided leg sling, so we can introduce it in a chair. And the important thing is we get it to the base. We need to get it to the base of the spine here, get it right down, bring the leg sections around under the bottom. Don't worry about trying to line up the top of the sling. That will sort itself out when we hoist. But the most important thing is to ensure you've got it around each leg, towards the knee, as smooth as possible. This one has padding, quilted padding to the legs so that it keeps its shape and is more comfortable. There are styles I know that don't have padding, but they can really ruck up and tourniquet, and they're not comfortable. Standard way of applying it is to cross the legs. If we don't cross those legs together, the legs will naturally splay. Maybe that's required, but for a standard application, we're going to cross them. Colour coding, there's colour coding for positioning. And basically, once you've got the sling, it's working it out which is the most appropriate setting. So it's all a bit of a jigsaw. So we're starting with the long leg, and on here we're going to use the short shoulder. So it's a good starting point. Short shoulder, long leg, and see whether that achieves a suitable position for the patient. So I'm just going to take up the slack slightly just so that we can see that we've got everything on, it's in place, it's in position, we've not got anything caught up. Don't go too fast, double check at each stage. So it's a full body sling. It's going to give full body support. So we can see, let's have a look. We can see from the back, it's giving full body support here. There is a little bit of access. Hopefully you can just make out that if you did need to do a toilet transfer or a hygiene transfer, then there is enough access for that, although clothing would have had to have been removed. But support to the legs, so very general. So we're calling it a general purpose, standard shape, very suitable for compliant standard scenarios. So I think, if you think about it as your standard situation, when the situation becomes a bit more challenging and you've got someone that's a bit more active, if Laura gets a bit active and stretches, can you try and, this could shoot up into her groin. If she tries to stand, then it's not so comfortable. So I would think about, if you've got a wriggler, an extender, then we think about a different style. Also, as the leg sections come through, they come through to go up to the hoist, you can slightly externally rotate the hip. If you've got anyone that's got painful joints, then again, we think about a different style because this will just pull through and it's very subtle. But if you've got someone that's got arthritis, osteoporosis, then they've got very painful joints. Just bear that in mind with this shape. So standard situations, absolutely fine. Things we can add on, we could add on a waist support. So waist supports are fitted at the waist or chest support at the chest. The position will depend on where you require it. It could be that you want to avoid a peg. If someone's got a little bit of movement, they may want it a bit higher just to make them feel secure. We could add on a head support. So head support would look like this. Arched head support with bone channels, and it works the same. I'll just put it around Laura. Just touch that seat or stop you spinning a bit more. So if we put this around, just hold the sides. It supports the head like that. So you can see how arched it is. The head support has a tape that you feed through the shoulder loop and then back through the slider. So there's a slider adjuster that you can then position to the required length. So quite adjustable. So that's a full head support. The bone sections can be taken out if you don't need them. So these slot in. Sometimes they're quite firm and they're taken out, which is fine. But if you need extra support, they slot in there like that. So that's just the bones there. So that's really everything to do with this particular shape. What I want to do now is just show you on the website, because there's lots of information to support the training that you can find per style on the website. If Alice, you can just kindly bring up the data sheet. So for this particular shape, you will find everything there. The data sheet with all the information on, a fitting video, sizing guide, measurements of the sling. So all this information is available, instructions of how to fit, so that you can use this as a bit of a library of each of the products. So hopefully that will help you. So every product we show you has one of these information sections on the website. So let me check. Thanks, Alice. Let me just check to see if there's any questions if anyone's got any questions and they haven't had an answer. Alice, do we have any questions that we haven't addressed?
No questions so far, Mandy.
Okay. So hopefully we understand that this type of shape will be the most suitable for, standard situations. So if we look at the next shape, which is the Fast Fit Deluxe, if you've got your poster, I'm just going to hold it up. You can hold that so we can see the differences. So a Fast Fit Deluxe, or a Quick Fit Deluxe, Easy Fit Deluxe, or sometimes called a hammock, is a very different shaped sling. It's very square. Hopefully we can get it into shot and you can see. So quite a different principle of leg. So slightly different, a bit more fiddly to put on because of the leg sections. But it's still a divided leg sling. So again, Laurie can just kindly sit down. So we can put it on in a chair. If you're applying the slings on a bed, then it's important to ensure you've got a head support or a profiling bed that can actually sit up, because you don't want to be picking up without a head support unless someone is supporting the head. But the slings are available with both, as we explained. So the leg sections come through and wrap around each thigh, so slightly different. And then you've got this modesty strap that you feed the opposite side through to create that. And then the outside tape feeds through one of the inner ones. So we can see much more fiddly. You hold that for me, please. But we're getting an outside pickup now. So compared to the first one, this is now picking up from the outside of the leg. So it's going to support the leg in a different way. So there's no rotating of the hip, so much more comfortable and giving full femur support. So just apply it. We'll start with short shoulder, long leg again. We'll try this and just take up the slack and just ensure we've got it all attached. As I said, it's a little bit more fiddly. You've got to make sure you've got the leg paddles around each femur. They're connected through the modesty strap, and then the outside longer tape goes through the inner one there. But still a full body sling. It's going to give full body support and also full femur support here. So you've got a good paddle of the sling there that will help. Still some access for a hygiene transfer if needed. There is enough in the event that you need to do that, but clothing would still have to be removed. But if Laura was a bit wriggly, we've now got individual control of those legs because they're individually attached. So a better one for a wriggler in many ways because of those paddles. And as I said, outside pickup. Also a style that's been used for long limb amputations. So if you can see that if you've got a residual leg, then it would sit within this leg paddle. I would always say that with an amputee, it's slightly worrying. Often it is slightly worrying, but if you think about long limb, knee and below, then you can usually get away with a standard sling. It's when the stump is much shorter that we need to just take a bit more thought in what to suggest, because the stump may not have any weight and it may raise up and slip back through the aperture. So long knee and below standard slings are fine. Any shorter, then I'll make another suggestion with a different style. So again, we can add the head support, waist support, chest support. Sometimes we have, let me just think if I got one. Instead of the full head support, a neck roll. So this is an accessory which is quite nice because it will nestle in the neck like that, rather than having a full head support that can sometimes force the head forward. Then this is worth another option. And again, it slots through the shoulder tape and back through the slider to adjust. You can have it positioned to the side if someone leans to the side. So it might be worth thinking about rather than a full head support. We'll just put it around Laura there. And then these tapes will feed through. the shoulder loop, and then back through the slider to adjust for the tension. So another option, again, this is on the little data sheet, so it'll give you an option of head support there. This style, because it's so square, the other way of using it is to hammock the legs. And we know it's a style that's often used in that way, and certainly because of the shape of it, it will hammock very well. There are certain risks with using it in this way, but I will just show you. So basically we feed one leg under the other and then connect again. The outside long tape feeds to the little one and it's picking up like a seat. So with this, we need to just be careful we don't hoist too upright. I'm going to try it on the yellow, just so we slightly recline. And you wouldn't do this if you've got a wriggler. But if you've got someone that maybe has a skirt or dress, doesn't like the divided leg pickup, they're very compliant, then it's possible. It will close the aperture up, but certainly the sling is very capable of doing this because it is such a square one. Maybe it's worth thinking about a chest strap for security, and a little neck roll. But that's the other way of using this particular style. So that is the Fast Fit Deluxe. Do we have any questions?
The only question we have is about the chest support. Could someone have some more details on the chest support, please?
Absolutely. So the chest support, I've got a detachable one here. Let me just show you. It's normally made in the same fabric as the sling, and it is fitted at the back. This one's a removable one, but certainly it would be fitted. Just put it around. Just a soft little chest strap. Can you hold that then? So chest would be chest level. So for a lady, it'd be under the bust. For a gentleman, it'd be on the bust. And it's just a little clunk click that you slot in and then tighten. So effectively, it looks like that. Quite useful for positioning the sling. So if you're putting the sling on a bed, then the carers will get it on them in position and they know where to fit the chest strap, so they know the sling's in the right place. So it's quite useful for that. Or waist level would be at the waist. So it does depend of your personal choice with that. But in standard slings like this, it would be fitted, a fitted little chest strap. So hopefully that's answered that question.
The other question we have, Mandy, is could you hammock the legs if they have scoliosis?
Again, this is always down to risk assessment. So if they're very hunched forward, then you need to be mindful that are they going to topple? Maybe they'll have to be slightly more reclined. Everything is down to an individual risk assessment. The sling's capable of doing that, but you need to then work out whether it's suitable in that particular situation. I certainly say if you're thinking about that, then a chest strap may be helpful and to slightly recline. So you know, you'd have to just weigh it all up. Right. So we've seen two styles now. The third style we're going to look at is the Universal Deluxe. So the Universal Deluxe is a deluxe leg. Laura, can you just hold that, please? Same principle as this one, but it's slightly more tailored. So it has the same paddle legs, but more angled. So we can see it's less square, but more angled at the leg there, which means it wraps around the hip quite well. Put put this on. Again, we're still looking at a divided leg sling, which you can apply within the chair. Padding to the legs. The leg paddles wrap around the femur as the previous one, right through there. And they connect together with this loop. A slightly different loop there. And then the outside tape comes through. So it's the same principle. It's the same sort of family of the deluxe legs. Picking up from the outside, so good support to the outside and the hip. Much more shape around the side. Just attach this. Again, we're going to go on the long leg. Going to go on the yellow shoulder. Laura, bit of a fiddle doing it itself, but it's helpful. This is a really popular style. We know it's been very successfully used for many situations, and it's one of my go-to styles. It's less generous as the previous one, so there's less, fabric. It does really give good support to the femur there. Again, full body, aperture for toileting. If Laura was a bit wriggly, again, we've got individual control from those leg paddles. So if you've got someone that's active, then this is a really good shape. They've got a pommel on the chair, got the divided leg. What I've done with this one though is, you can just support yourself on there, is I've added a hip tape. So hip tape is an addition, but it's a really good addition if you're trying to problem solve with someone that has got really painful joints. They're slumping and you want to lift that area. So the hip tapes will help to lift that area, take support and distribute the weight and take pressure from behind the knee. So it is usually a detachable one that feeds through a loop on the sling. So we would put a loop on, but it looks like this. Let me just bring it closer. So it's on a slider buckle there. So we need to get the position required and then push the D-ring. There's some of the slings we have will have a metal D-ring there, but we're replacing that with this slider, plastic slider. So we're reducing the metal on the sling, but it's there so that if I extend this loop fully, I haven't got to fight to open that loop up because the D-ring or the plastic bar's doing that for me. So it's helping to keep that loop open. But as I say, once we get the level, push that out the way. But we want to position it to pick up simultaneously with the legs. So we're trying to do the same tension as the legs, like that. If it's too tight, it's going to force the hips up first. If it's too loose, it won't do anything. But hopefully you can just about see that if I just take up the tension here, it's going to lift that area. And it really is helpful. Also, if you've got someone that's quite asymmetrical and you want to just try to correct their position for the transfer, you can adjust them. So adjust the tapes so that that helps to correct, and you've not got someone trying to hold them in. So for that type of situation where they've got windswept hips, the legs on the sling will naturally allow that position because of the individual paddle legs. And often, you can be creative by hooking up shorter on one side just to get that a better position for the transfer. So the sling's capable if you've got to pick up asymmetrically, certainly with the hip tape. So a really good extra option for this style. So the sling this is the Universal Deluxe. The leg paddles aren't long enough to hammock on this one, so we just need to think about using it in a divided leg position like this. but you can have the head support on, the chest strap, the waist support, or the hip tapes. Hip tapes can be added to most styles. You just need to check with us that they are a good addition to most styles, but work really well on this one because of the shaping. So that's the Universal Deluxe. Any questions on this one, Alice?
No questions so far.
We've seen 3 out of the 6, so we're doing well. I'll just take this one off Laura and then bring in the Recline Shape. So a Recline Shape sling is slightly different. And if you've got your poster, you'll see it's an oblong shape that needs to be applied on a bed. Just bring this hoist. So I'll show you the sling. So the sling is slightly different, oblong shape. This one has got an aperture for toileting and an arched head support. So you can see there's no divided leg section, so you would need to apply it on the bed. But I have got it on another hoist. Just bring in this mobile, and I've got it set up for an amputee type situation. So for an amputee situation, this is a really good shape. So for shorter amputations, bilateral through hip, any scenario, then this is quite a useful sling to consider. It's all in one. Apply it on the bed, but it comes through and supports in the hammock type situation. So the legs are together. It's got a little pommel strap here that comes between the legs and then connects through to the outside tape, and that helps to lift that centre. So like when we hammocked the Fit Deluxe, the legs are slightly pushed together. This one will lift in the middle and help with weight distribution. So it sort of balances the legs a little bit. They don't roll in. They're quite useful and worth remembering. This was the waist support that I showed earlier, but this would fit round the back through a channel on this shape and then around the chest. Again, you can have a head support and the hip tapes. This one comes as standard with a loop for the hip tape. So that can be added. Detachable one there can be added there. And just knotted through, and then it lifts. So looking at this spreader bar, it's really important to consider your hoist spreader bar, because the success of hoisting is a combination of the right hoist and the right sling. So sometimes, you know, it's the wrong hoist, it's the wrong sling, but you need to make sure you are considering both. Because if you've got someone that has got very painful joints and you're putting a sling on to a narrow spreader bar, it's going to protract and add to that problem. So you think about the width of that person and make sure that you're taking the sling up wider or as wide to prevent that. So for complex situations, you know, you just really need to think about that. This particular one, we can gain an extra couple of inches by taking the tape out to the side and hooking it up, so that will help. But there's lots of different spreader bar widths. So think about for your, you know, complex, challenging situations, you need to just check. And sometimes you need a 4-point, so it opens it out. So you've got shoulder and one here, so it opens out and won't prevent folding. So yes, just, you know, worth checking that out. So this is the Recline. We normally make this in the spacer fabric. So a spacer fabric is suitable to be left in for extended periods, subject to your risk assessment and suitability. But it is a mesh. It can be used for bathing, but it is very popular for longer use because it's very smooth. There's no handles, there's minimal seams, so it's, you know, quite a nice, easy style. However, you can't toilet with it. If toileting is required, we will put an aperture in, but then you need to be mindful if you're leaving it on, they'll be sat on the binding. You can have the head support, yeah, arched head support, which look like this. So the same as the head supports, arched with a head support tape. So yes, that can be supplied. Again, look at the data sheet on the website. It'll give you all the options and tell you what can be added to this particular style. So that's the Recline. Any questions we haven't answered, Alice, on this one?
I don't think so. You covered about a sling suggestion for painful knees, didn't you? And then James has just noted that in his 27 years of experience, he's only had one client that would allow these to be applied outside of the bed application, and they had to have very strong upper body.
What do you mean, apply it in a chair?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it is tricky. Absolutely right, James. Yes, to put it on in a chair. I've seen it done with a couple of really experienced therapists, and we're using slide sheets and yes, some able body and strength in the upper body, but it is a right jiggle to get it in, sliding, and you know, so certainly it's easier to put it on the bed, certainly. Thanks for that, James. Right, so we've seen 4 shapes now. The 5th style is the toileting sling. So let me just show you. Toilet, access, hygiene, dressing, whatever you want to call it, it looks like this. There's not much to it. So it's really important that if you're assessing for this, that your patient has really good to reasonable upper body strength, because you can see there's not going to be much support from the sling and there is potential to slip through. But we know carers love this because they can access clothing more easily. So it's easier to put on. Certainly, Laura, if you can just hold that, please. This one, the Silvalea one, slightly different in as much that it's got some shaping here, scalloping to the top of the legs, which means there's more access to clothing when it's on. We always have a Velcro and a clunk clip buckle. Velcro is great as long as it's not clogged up and matted. So make sure it's always closed when it's not in use or when it's being laundered, to encourage that. Otherwise it's going to catch on everything, catch on the binding, and it will have, you know, a detrimental effect to that. And the clunk click is a secure clunk click there. It's also attached as far to the sides as possible here, so it's giving a lot more support to the trunk as much as possible, rather than some I've seen that have been attached to the centre, so there's more play, whereas this will give as much support as we can give with this style. If I put it on, Laura, thank you. As I said, this is a really fairly easy sling to put on because we're not struggling to get it right down to the base. Got the clunk click here. Padded leg sections that wrap around the femur there. And we will connect them together by feeding it through. This is the standard way of using it, but I know sometimes it's not connected. We'll just bring in the hoist. So this one I'm going to attach the long leg and the green shoulder. Arms are going to be on the outside. We'll just take up the slack slowly so we can just check we've got it attached. Okay. So we can see we're going to get lots of access. Certainly, it's still difficult to remove clothing. You need to have baggy, loose clothing to access that area. But, you know, it's a lot better than the full body slings we've seen. But if we don't fit this properly, and if you've got someone that has potential to slip through, can you slump through this, Laura? You're going to get that. So you may have seen that. You may have patients that still say it's fine, but it's not. So what I'll do is I'll just share a few tips on using it for longer by just giving you 3 little pointers. So I'm just going to take it off. I'm just going to take it fully off. The first tip is to think about the size. So Laura's been in a medium sling across the board so far, but toileting slings like this, we need them to be very fitted. So it's often worth checking and going down a size. So I'm going to put a small on her. So the small size is the first thing I'm going to do. The second thing is to fit the waist support at the waist. It's really important, it's at the waist, as low as possible. So if we keep it in place at the waist, it's unlikely then to ride up. So we put this on the waist. So fit that at the waist as firm as possible, and then the front click. Then the legs come through, neck together, and start again. So we'll just attach it again with the ring. Arms are on the outside. I didn't actually apologise earlier, but we are in a very temporary room, which is slightly restricting us. But we're moving into a new studio hopefully next week, so we'll have much more space, but we are managing as best we can. Right, so we've got it on low, we've gone down a size, and the next tip is, with most people, as the hoist takes up the slack, the body will then naturally thin out, and at that point the waistband will slacken off. It's slackened off considerably here, and we had it fitted as firm as we could. So at that point we need to just tighten the waist support. So it's got to be firm. We're trying to give as much support from the sling as possible, and we need to ensure that we do fit it as firmly as possible. So now, if Laura was to slump through now, trying, she's going nowhere, because we've done everything we can possible to help support her. So do you want to put your arm up a minute? Here under the arm, if it's biting in, there's a reason, and it may be that it's ridden up because it's too loose. It's ridden up because it's been applied too high, or their tone is just too poor. So, you know, there's a reason why it rides up, and it shouldn't if it's applied properly and it's suitable. So just keep those 3 little tips in mind. Go down a size, fit low, and retighten as the hoist takes up the slack. Hopefully that will help with using this for longer. Are there any questions on this one?
I haven't got any so far, Mandy.
Okay, excellent. So we've seen 5 family of slings now. So if you think about all of those styles, we've used this type of hook spreader bar. There's these hooks that we put loops on. So the only other style that is available is a sling that goes on a clip or hoist, clip fixed hoist. And we'll just swap these over and bring in this one. Do you want to push that to me, please? So in the event of this type of hoist, which is often called a wishbone, Lovely open shape, nice shape. But if we have this situation, we have to have a sling that has clips on. So these clips will lock onto the stud on the hoist. So you can see there's studs, not loops, and then the clip locks on nice and crisply and clearly. So this is our high easy shape. It's a high easy sling. Got one here. It's a full body sling, always has a head support. So it'll always have a head support because of the configuration of this hoist. It will naturally find the center of gravity and it's normally slightly reclined. So certainly it will come with a head support. There is a little bit of aperture, and the leg sections are very short because they're only coming up to a stud just above the knee rather than going up to the hoist above the head. So the style is very different with quite short legs. So a great shape, very simple for carers to put on because you've got one shoulder clip and one leg clip. So very little confusion. However, it will only suit certain conditions. We can't change the leg configuration. We can't use the deluxe shape. We can't add a hip tape. So it will restrict you to this shape. There are some slight variations with as a toileting version, but it will be based on this shape with head support, short legs. But yeah, so the high easy shape for the stud hoists is very different. Any questions on this one, Alice?
None so far.
Okay, so let's just summarize then. Think about your 6 families, the 6 sling families, many versions of each, but certainly if you look at the main shape, understand what each of them does. You could probably dismiss a few if you're trying to do an assessment and you haven't got the stud hoist, you can't have toileting, so you just reduce down the options of the shape. Then you've got to think about your fabric. Do you need it to be a standard fabric, whether you need to add anything on it, and then work out the sizing. So sizing will help as much as we can with the website measurements. If someone falls between, then certainly we'll be able to custom make it for you. Alice will be able to do an assessment for you. So certainly there's loads of help we can offer, but so please just ask. So hopefully it's been helpful. We do have a Sling Selector poster, which Alice, if you would just kindly bring up the main poster. So this may help you when you're choosing a range, and all the products on here are on the website. It's been laid out in the families. So the first line is all the standard general purpose shapes to help you with understanding that style and it's suitable with what we've discussed. The deluxe shapes, the hammock shapes, they're all, as we've gone through all those 6 shapes, the toileting and the clip options. On the other page there's a few more styles that will help if you're looking at a pediatric selection or in situ selection, harnesses. So this is available. We'll happily send this to you. As I said, it reflects everything on the website, so at a glance you can see the range. But we ask that if you kindly fill in the feedback form, Alice will then send you the poster. But
Maddie, we just got a quick question on what clients would use the Wishbone frame for, so the clip hoist.
It's really dependent on the organisation. So often that style of sling is in hospitals. So if it's in hospitals, then we can only issue one style of sling. So basically, it has to suit every scenario. I know hospitals now are having more options with the loops, but it will depend on the organisation. So it's not that the sling suits the condition, it's actually we're having to provide a sling to the hoist. So in complex situations, I know in the past I've said that we need to change the hoist because we need something that will support someone like a deluxe shape. So unfortunately, there's only limited styles for that hoist. Any other questions, Alice?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you to Laura for helping me, to James and Alice. Any further questions, please, email and we'll try and answer them as best we can. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we can then, you can join other sessions, which we will keep you posted on. So thanks guys very much.